London, 1910. Just past dawn as the fog curled over Belgrave Square and the bells of St. Peter's tolled 6:30. I was pinning the final pearl-fastened cufflink into the Viscount's sleeve when he said it. "She's not the woman I love." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The weight of it settled between us like dust on velvet. I paused, fingers still at his wrist, eyes not daring to look up. "You're to marry Lady Evelyn at noon," I said, smoothing the edge of his collar instead. "It's not a day for riddles, my lord." He turned then, fully, and I was forced to lift my gaze. Konstantin Wentley, Viscount of Northmere, stood like he had since we were children, shoulders too proud, eyes too tired. I had known him since I was 10 and he 12, when my father's tailoring shop first sent me to the Northmere estate to help with his coats. Years passed, and my apprenticeship ended, but Konstantin always asked for me. And now, I was dressing him for his wedding. "She's waiting for me," he said, "near the East Conservatory. She asked to see me one last time." I should have walked away. I was the daughter of a seamstress and a groundskeeper, apprenticed under the Northmere tailor since I was 14. He was a viscount, set to marry the daughter of a marquis. There were rules, but I didn't walk away. Instead, I whispered, "You have 10 minutes." He didn't thank me. He didn't need to. He just grabbed his coat and disappeared down the servants' stairwell. I stood alone in his dressing chamber, heart tight, my hands still warm from his sleeve. When I followed only to make sure he wasn't seen, I found the back hall empty. The household was already setting the drawing room for guests, and no one noticed me slip past the breakfast parlor and out the terrace doors. The East Conservatory was half hidden behind trimmed yew hedges and the old rose maze. I stopped short just beyond the trellis, unseen, when I heard her voice. "You said you wouldn't let them force you." "I tried," Konstantin said. "My father threatened to cut my allowance. He'd ruin her family, Amara. Your mother depends on your work." My breath caught. Amara. My name. I stepped forward, the gravel crunching beneath my boots. Konstantin turned first, then the woman beside him, tall, dark-haired, with my face. She looked like me, because she was me. My twin sister, Alara. The Viscount's secret love was my sister, and I hadn't seen her in nearly 2 years. Alara and I had always shared things: books, clothes, secrets. But she left London the spring I turned 17, after father died. She found work as a governess in Derbyshire, refusing to live off the family that barely fed us. We wrote, then less, then not at all. And now she was here, in love, with the man I had dressed for his wedding. I begged him not to come, Alara said softly as we sat in the empty gardener's hut an hour later, hidden from the guests arriving through the front gate. But he insisted on seeing me first. "You're mad," I told her. "Both of you. If his father finds out." "He already did," Konstantin said. He'd followed us, uninvited, and stood now in the doorway, his cravat undone, the lilies in his boutonniere already wilting. "That's why she left." I begged her to stay. She wouldn't. "I didn't want your ruin," Alara whispered. "And now you'll both be ruined," I said. "He's marrying Lady Evelyn in 2 hours." "No," Konstantin said. "I'm not." He stepped forward, pulling something from his coat. A letter. The Northmere seal broken. "My father threatened me with shame, with disownment. But he forgot something," he said. "I've already served in South Africa. I've already bled for this country. What else can he take from me?" "Your title," I said. "Let him." Alara stood. "You'd give up your name?" "I'd give up every name but hers." I stared at them, my sister, the man I'd known most of my life. And I saw it. The way they looked at each other. The way Konstantin's hand found hers without thought. I saw that what they had was real. But real wouldn't stop the scandal. "They'll call her a whore," I said. "They'll say she seduced you. You'll be stripped of everything." "I don't care," he said. "I do," Alara said, her voice shaking. "I don't want you to lose your name for mine." "You're not her," I said suddenly, the idea forming as I spoke. "Not today." They both looked at me. "I'll wear the veil. She'll be gone before the ceremony begins. I'll walk down the aisle. I'll get you to the altar." "She'd be found out," Konstantin said. "The minister would notice." "No, he won't," Alara said quietly. "We're identical, and no one's seen me in 2 years. They wouldn't know." "You can get away before the vows," I said. "We'll fake an illness. A faint. I'll make sure Lady Evelyn never shows. But you," I pointed at Konstantin, "you'd better be ready to run." He stared at me, then nodded. 3 hours later, I stood behind the heavy oak doors of St. George's Chapel, veil pulled low, heart hammering. Lady Evelyn had been intercepted by a forged note, directing her to meet her groom in the rose garden. She'd be wandering there for at least an hour. Alara had already slipped away, a cloak over her hair, to wait at the train station with a forged ticket and a bag packed with my clothes. And I was about to walk down the aisle as her. The organ began. Konstantin stood at the altar, every inch the Viscount. But when I reached him and he lifted the veil, he didn't smile. He looked past me. Father Thomas frowned. "Something wrong, my lord?" "No," Konstantin said. Only joy." I barely made it to the first hymn before I stumbled. The congregation gasped as I fell, and Konstantin caught me before I hit the stone floor. "She's fainted," he said. "Quickly, fetch water." No one stopped us as he carried me out. No one guessed. And by the time we were out of sight, I was running beside him, past the vestry, through the back gate, into the waiting cab. "Did she make it?" Konstantin asked as we drove. "She's waiting at platform 2, I said. "Train to York, then to Edinburgh." He pulled me in and hugged me. "Thank you. You'd better marry her," I said. It was only when he stepped out and ran for the platform that I let myself cry. Not because I was sad, but because I had just saved the man I loved for my sister. And now I would never tell him how I felt. The Northmere estate was silent by midnight. The guests had long since gone home, their carriages rattling down the gravel drive, confused and scandal-hungry after the abrupt collapse of the ceremony. Lady Evelyn had vanished in a fury, her mother's shrill protests echoing through the drawing room before they, too, disappeared into the London fog. I remained behind, summoned by Lady Northmere herself. The Countess had always been the quieter half of the Northmere marriage, but her silence was never passive. When I stepped into the morning room, she sat upright on a tufted chair upholstered in sage silk, her hands folded neatly in her lap. "You were seen," she said without lifting her gaze from the fire. Not clearly, but clearly enough. I kept my arms at my sides, my chin lifted. There was no deceit. "There was theater," she returned. "And you played your part expertly. But someone always sees. And word always travels." I waited. She let the silence stretch. "My son is in Sussex, I believe," she said at last. "With your sister." "Yes." "Did he ask you to help them?" "No." "Then why did you?" I stepped forward. "Because I could." Only then did she look at me. Her face was lined finely, like porcelain aged by time, not wear. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. "You're not like her." "No," I said. "We never were." Her gaze drifted back to the fire. "He used to follow you around the estate when you were children, always tripping after you. You never noticed." "I noticed." She nodded slowly. "And you still helped him leave with her." "I did." She took a long breath and exhaled through her nose. "I will not speak of this again. But you should go. The staff will be dismissed in the morning. My husband is not a man who forgives." I curtsied. "Thank you, my lady." Outside, the air was brittle with cold. I walked the length of the drive, past the gatehouse and into the city's edge, my boots damp from the grass. I had no money, no place to stay. I'd left my position and my name behind. But I walked. By dawn, I reached the seamstress quarter off Holborn. Madame Giroux, a friend of my late mother's, opened her door wearing only a shawl and a pair of wire spectacles. "Amara, I need work." She studied me a moment, then stepped aside. "Then come in." She gave me a room in the attic, with a cot and a chipped basin. I worked 12-hour days stitching sleeves and hemming gowns for women who never met my eye. It wasn't Northmere silk, but my fingers knew the thread, and I kept busy. 3 weeks passed. Then one morning, as I was folding muslin in the back room, Madame Giroux appeared with a cream-colored envelope in her hand. "Delivered by foot," she said. "No name on the front. But the seal." I took it. The Northmere crest had been pressed lightly into the wax, but the color was wrong. Not red. Blue. Inside was a single sheet. "Amara, we are in Rye. We have no servants. No dressmaker. No one who knows how to fix the tea kettle. The roof leaks. I cannot tie a corset without help." And still she's smiling. "I want to see you." Not for her. For me. "Come. Kay." I folded the page carefully and set it in my apron pocket. That night, after Madame Giroux had gone to bed, I walked to the station with my week's wages in hand. The train to Rye left at 8:30. I sat by the window and watched the city vanish behind me, soot and gaslight giving way to fields and stone walls. Rye was smaller than I expected, cobbled lanes, a harbor lined with fishing boats, and a red brick inn tucked against the hillside. I found the cottage easily. It was off the main road, surrounded by tangled ivy and a crooked fence. The gate creaked when I opened it. He met me at the door. His coat was too thin for the wind, and his hair had grown longer. For the first time, Konstantin looked like a man with no title. He looked like someone who had walked away from everything. "You came," he said. "I came to see my sister." "She's in town," he said. "At the grocer's." I hesitated. "Then I'll wait." He stepped aside. The cottage smelled of salt and hearth smoke. The floors were uneven, the furniture secondhand. I sat on a chair by the window and folded my hands in my lap. He didn't sit. "I wanted to see if you were well," he said. "You left without a word. I didn't think it was my place to stay. You saved us. You saved her. I made a choice." He crossed to the hearth and leaned against the mantel. "She knows. She always knows. She's grateful, but worried. She thinks you gave up too much." "I gave what I had. She thinks I should have seen it sooner." I looked at him then. "Seen what?" "That it wasn't her." I stood. "Don't. I'm not confused, Amara. You loved her." "I thought I did. Or I loved who I was with her." I felt brave. But when I left the church, it wasn't her face I wanted to see. I stepped back. "You're married?" "No. The vicar never reached us. We found a registry office in Hastings." She changed her mind. My breath caught. She said it wasn't her story anymore, that I needed to find the person I kept looking for. I turned my face away. "You're not making sense." "Yes, I am." He moved closer. "You've always stood just outside it, Amara. Always giving, always watching. I didn't see it until I watched you walk down the aisle for her. You didn't look at me like she did. You looked like someone who had already let me go. You were never mine. I wanted to be." I closed my eyes, then opened them. "I don't want to rescue." He reached for my hand. "I don't want to rescue you. I want to begin." The door opened behind us. Alara stepped in, her arms full of parcels, the wind catching her scarf. She saw us, paused, and smiled, not surprised, not hurt, just certain. "I'll put the kettle on," she said. "You two look like you've been waiting a long time." The kettle hissed low on the iron stove while the wind pressed against the shutters, carrying the scent of seaweed and peat. Alara moved about the cottage with quiet purpose, placing dry pears into a chipped bowl and shaking out the damp from her gloves. She didn't look at me or Konstantin, but her silence wasn't a retreat, it was a gift. She knew when to step aside without vanishing. "I've taken a room at the inn," she said, setting the fruit on the table. "The cot's small, but there's hot water most days. I'll be staying there until I find a post." "You're not staying here?" I asked. She shook her head once. "This is yours now." Konstantin said nothing, only peeled a corner of paint from the edge of the hearth with his thumb. The quiet held. Alara wrapped her scarf again. "I'll leave you to it." When the door shut behind her, he turned. She always knows the shape of things before the rest of us. I moved to the window, where the glass was warped with age. The sea was visible in the distance, cold and constant. "Are you expecting me to stay?" He stepped toward me, slow, careful. "I'm hoping you will." I didn't answer. Instead, I lifted the edge of the curtain. "There's a woman with a lace umbrella watching the gate." His jaw tightened. "She's been here every third day. Doesn't speak to anyone. Just stands there. A maid from my mother's house, I suspect." "You're being followed." "I'm being monitored." "It's different." I turned to face him. "If they find out I'm here, they already know." I waited. My mother sent a letter. It arrived yesterday. She wrote that she's instructed the staff not to speak of what happened. She's made it clear that we are not welcome at Northmere, but she's also made it clear she'll keep the dogs at bay. I crossed my arms. "And your father?" He looked toward the mantel, where a single candlestick leaned slightly to the left. "Hasn't written. Likely never will." I took a step closer to the hearth. "So what do you intend to be now?" "No title. No inheritance. No seat in the Lords." He met my eyes. "A man with hands. And time. I've been apprenticing with the carpenter on River Lane. I've sanded more banisters this week than I knew existed." I almost laughed. "You? With a plane and rasp?" He smiled, not with triumph, but with something quieter. "It's the first time I've ever slept through the night." I touched the edge of the bowl Alara had left. The pears were soft with bruising. "You're strange now." "No," he said. "I'm finally myself." I let my hand fall to my side. "You never spoke of it," he said. When we were at Northmere. That day in the hut. You never said what you gave up. I didn't need to. I did. I turned toward the fireplace again. I gave up watching you love her, I said. That was enough. He crossed the space between us, slowly, until only a breath stood between us. Then let me give you something in return. I didn't step back. What is it? Everything I am. Without apology. I looked up at him. The curl behind his ear had come loose again, same as when we were children in the orchard, and his hands were no longer manicured but calloused along the palm. I'm not her, I said. I know. I won't vanish if you hesitate. I won't. I let my fingers rest against the edge of his coat. You don't know what I need. Then teach me. The door rattled, then opened. A boy in a wool cap stuck his head in. Letter from Miss Giroux, he said, holding out an envelope. I took it, handed him a coin from the dish near the door, and closed it again. She wants me back. He waited. She says there's a position with the Marchioness of Yarmouth. Permanent. I'd have my own workroom. Clients. He didn't move. She's offering me a future. He raised his eyes. And what am I offering? I looked at him, truly looked at the man who had once been a viscount, who had chosen ruin for love, who had learned the names of every tool in a joiner's chest. You're offering me a life, I said. One that starts now. He stepped forward, and for the first time, I let him hold me, not out of gratitude, not to steady me, but because there was no longer any reason not to. Outside, the woman with the umbrella had vanished. Only the gate remained, swinging gently in the wind. The first warmth of spring arrived in Rye not with blossom, but with salt drawn in on the tide and lingering in the folds of linen hung to dry. I had been living in the cottage for 6 weeks, and I could now tell the time by the angle of sun on the floorboards and the distant call of the milk cart's wheels against the hill. Konstantin had fitted a shelf above the hearth for my pattern books. He didn't mention it when he built it. I found it one morning, varnish still tacky, a space cleared for my tracing chalk and shears. I hadn't asked for it. That was the point. I've been offered another commission, I said one evening as I stitched the hem of a walking skirt by lamplight. A solicitor's wife in Winchelsea. She wants a mourning ensemble for her cousin's estate proceedings. He leaned against the doorframe, sleeves rolled, the scent of sawdust still clinging to his shirt. Do you mind the work? I don't mind grief. I mind empty compliments. He crossed to the table and picked up the spool of thread. What do you want then? I paused. To build something that doesn't disappear the moment she steps into a drawing room. He turned the spool over in his hands, then set it down with care. You're not invisible here. That's not what I meant. He crouched beside me, his knee brushing the edge of my skirt. Tell me what you meant. I laid the needle aside. In London, no matter what I made, it belonged to someone else the moment it fit their waist. Here it still does. But I want something that doesn't change just because someone else wears it. You want permanence. I want to be seen and not borrowed. He touched the fabric draped over my lap. Then let me help you make something of your own. I won't be a project. He shook his head. You're not. But if you wanted to shop your own place, I could build it. Walls, tables, whatever you need. I watched him. You do that. I've already drawn the plans. I looked down at the hem. You should have shown me. I wanted to wait until it was yours, not mine. The next morning, we walked to the edge of town, where the old cooper's barn stood boarded and bowed. He pried open the latch. Inside, dust motes floated in long shafts of light, and the scent of rusted hinges mingled with damp straw. There's rot along the eastern beam, I said. I saw it. I'll brace it. The roof sound. I stepped over a broken crate. Do you know what this means? He dusted off a workbench. That you'll need signage. That I'll need time. I've waded through far worse. I reached into my coat pocket and drew out a folded sheet of paper, the commission list I'd kept since arriving. Then help me carry this to the cottage. I'll rewrite it. He held the door as we stepped out into the morning sun. You once said you didn't want rescue. I still don't. Then what do you want now? To stop running. He nodded. Then let's begin. By May, the shop had a roof of fresh slate and a bell over the door that rang with a high, clean note. Alara returned for the opening. She wore a dress I had sewn in 2 days, the hem stitched with a pattern only she and I would recognize, 2 threads, twined, then parting. I've taken a teaching post in Norwich, she said as she adjusted her gloves. There's a garden. And books. I walked her to the train station. Will you write? If you'll write back. Always. She pressed a folded note into my hand. Read it after I've gone. I waited until the train had vanished along the coastal bend, then opened it. You never took anything from me. You gave me the courage to leave. You saved his life, not just his name. Make something of yours now. I'll be watching. Hey. That night, as I closed the shop shutters, Konstantin came in from the back stair, wiping paint from his wrists. There's a woman coming from Brighton, I said. She wants a writing habit. She's bringing her own sketches. He poured us 2 cups of tea, then paused. Will you show me yours? My sketches. He nodded. The ones you haven't made yet. I set down my cup. They're not ready. He met my gaze. Neither was I. But you waited. In the quiet that followed, I reached for the thin leather folder beneath the counter and opened it between us. He didn't speak. He just turned each page with care, as though the lines themselves held breath. Outside, the tide had shifted. The moon had risen above the hill. And inside, for the first time, I let the future arrive without fear.